In this audio lecture, we shall discuss the backdrop against which The Inheritance of Loss was written by Kiran Desai. The novel The Inheritance of Loss was set against the backdrop of the Gorkhaland movement, which started around 1986 and continued till 1988 in the Darjeeling Hills. And this novel depicts the effect this agitation has on Sai's family in Kalimpong, which consists of her maternal grandfather, Jemu Bhai Patel, his dog Mutt, and the cook. And on a parallel track, the novel follows the journey of Biju, the cook's son, who is an illegal immigrant in the United States, and consequently his eventual return to his home. So this novel, as we read, it analyzes and explores the major themes of the loss of identity and the way it travels through generations as a sense of loss. Now let's talk about the Gorkhaland movement, which took place in and around Darjeeling. Now, Gorkhaland is actually a proposed state in India which was demanded by the people of Darjeeling Hills and the people of Gorkha, who were of Nepali origin, indoors in northern West Bengal, and they wanted a separate state for themselves on the basis of ethno-linguistic rights. Now, this movement for Gorkhaland gained much momentum in the line of ethno-linguistic cultural sentiment of the people, because it was from this perspective that they demanded for a separate state for themselves, taking into account ethnicity, their language, their culture as well. And these people, they wanted to identify themselves as Indian Gorkhas. So there are actually two mass movements for Gorkhaland that have so far taken place under the Gorkha National Liberation Front between 1986 to 88, and Gorkha Janmukti Morcha, which began in 2007 and is still date continuing. So what we find is that in 1947, the undivided CPI, or the Undivided Communist Party of India, they also demanded the formation of Gorkhastan, which would consist of the Darjeeling district, Sikkim, and Nepal. Even in independent India, another memorandum was submitted, which demanded this separation from Bengal. However, in 2007, a new party called the Gorkha Janmukti Morcha, or GJM, raised the demand for a separate state of Gorkhaland once again. So what we can see is that this Gorkhaland movement seemed to cast a very deep impact on the life of several people living in Kalimpong. And as we read the novel, we find that how the life of several people gets influenced, gets impacted, not only that, gets disrupted at the same time because of this agitation. This novel was published on 31st August 2006, and we know that it also won the 2007 Booker Prize. And it was written, over a period of 7 years. And among its main themes are migration, then living between two worlds, and between past and present. So, if we look at the novel, we can say that The Inheritance of Loss is set partly in India and partly in the US. And Kiran Desai describes that her book tries to capture what it actually means for an individual to live between East and West, and what it means to be an immigrant at the same time. She also explores at a deeper level, like what happens, when a Western element is introduced into a country that is not of the West, or that is not part of the West, which happened during the British colonial days in India, and which is happening again with India's new relationship with the states. Another objective that the novelist seems to have is that, like, she focuses, like, what happens when some people are taken out, or they are taken from a poor country and they are placed in a wealthy one, and how this imbalance between these two worlds, as I said, living between two worlds, like once a person was poor and now suddenly becomes rich. So what kind of impact does this kind of imbalance have on a person's thinking and feeling, that when there is an imbalance between these two worlds, so what kind of change does it cast upon a person's thinking and feeling? And according to the novelist Kiran Desai, these are not new themes that she has dealt with in her novel. Rather, she says that these are old themes which continue to be relevant even in today's world, where we find the past informing the present and the present revealing the past. So, this is the second novel by Kiran Desai, which is also about the rigid class systems that exist in India and abroad among Indians, and the struggles that people face, like within these classes, after colonialism. So, when we read the novel, we find that the narrative is set against the backdrop of Kalimpong. Like, it also has the backdrop of, as I said, Gorkhaland movement near Darjeeling in the northwesternmost part of India. And the story begins in the northeastern Himalayas in Kalimpong. So, in the novel, we find Kiran Desai exploring the several, the multifaceted aspects of loss. And as we read the narrative, we find that the narrative shifts back and forth between Kalimpong and the desperate world of the illegal, or the non-white immigrants in the US. So here the novelist tries to point to the complexities of race and ethnicity in both places, in India, in Kalimpong, as well as in the United States. She tries to point out these complexities related to race, as I said, and ethnicity. And she also says that class also is an intruding factor here, as we find that educated, rich Indians, they try very hard to differentiate themselves from the poor and the underclass. And the novelist Kiran Desai also reflects upon the fact that the opportunity to copy or emulate a British lifestyle is something that has drawn many westernized Indians to hill stations like Kalimpong, where the temperate climate is such that it implies that makes one feel that one is not part of tropical or mainstream India.